Hello hockey fans and welcome back to NHL Replayed, the series where we use the power of video games to replay the last 2 decades of NHL history. In today's episode, we are going to drastically alter the current timeline by completing a season that didn't take place. So join me as we attempt to answer the question, what if the 2004-2005 NHL Lockout never happened? Now before we jump into NHL 2005, let's take a look at what actually happened during the 04-05 season. Absolutely nothing, onto the video game. Okay, let's actually look at what happened, shall we? On September 16th, 2004, the NHL announced that a lockout had been initiated by both the league itself and the NHL Players Association, since the two sides were unable to agree on a new collective bargaining agreement for the upcoming 04-05 NHL season. Now, the biggest point of contention between the two sides, and the primary cause of this dispute, was the proposed introduction of a salary cap. Since the league claimed that 76% of club revenues had been spent on team salaries during the prior 03-04 season, and since the NHL as a whole was said to have lost $273 million during the 02-03 season, Gary Bettman and the NHL were eager to achieve what they called cost certainty, so they proposed 6 different strategies to the Players Association in the hopes of significantly reducing the league's losses. However, the NHLPA, led by Executive Director Bob Goodenow, disputed the league's financial claims and rejected each of the 6 proposals since they all contained some form of salary cap, which the PA had vowed never to accept as the players would suffer a significant reduction to their earnings compared to the current free market system. Interestingly, a Forbes report from November of 2004 supposedly claimed that the NHL's losses were less than half the amount that the league had claimed, so perhaps there was some credence to the PA's accusations. But anyway, as negotiations postponed the start of the regular season, and with hundreds of NHL players awaiting a decision overseas, little progress was made, as talks between the two parties ground to a halt since neither side was willing to back down on their respective demands. This deadlock would eventually lead to the worst possible outcome shortly after the new year, as in February of 2005, the league announced that it would not resume operations that year, meaning the entire 04-05 NHL season had effectively been cancelled. Though the NHL became the first and only league of the 4 major North American sports to cancel an entire season of play, the two sides would eventually come to an agreement several months later, as on July 22nd, 2005, a new CBA was signed for the following 05-06 season, bringing the lockout to an end after 10 months and 6 days. As part of the new CBA, a hard salary cap was introduced. Team salary revenues were reduced from 76% down to 54%, a myriad of rule changes were implemented, including the introduction of the shootout, and Bob Goodenow was forced to resign as Executive Director of the Players Association. Now it's worth mentioning that I've simplified many of these events for the sake of time, so if you want to learn more about how and why the lockout went down, check out this video that I made several years ago on the 5 times the NHL stopped play, as I go into much greater detail on the whole event. So now that we know what actually happened during the 04-05 season, let's fire up NHL 2005 and see how the season might have gone if it ended up being played. Let's do it, folks. So here we are in NHL 2005 to play through the season that never was, ladies and gentlemen. Now once again, just like the previous episodes, this is the Nintendo GameCube version of NHL 2005, and once again, the music, I've turned it off because I don't want a copyright strike. So similar to the rest of the series so far, I'm going to put the skill level at medium, because I'm pretty sure that's what we've had for the previous episodes. Now for the rules, I want to turn injuries off, and I'm going to turn the 2-line pass off as well. Yes, I know that it's not entirely correct with the actual NHL, but neither's this episode, so, I think we can take a few liberties there. And the last thing I want to change is CPU trading. I'm going to turn that off. So injuries and trading off once again. Now in terms of the team that we're going to use for this episode, obviously the 04-05 lockout meant that there was no Stanley Cup champion during this season, so we don't have a actual reference point from the real NHL or a Stanley Cup champion to play as during this episode. Now since we've played as an Eastern Conference team for every single episode so far in this series, and since Vancouver Canucks forward Marcus Naslund is the cover athlete of NHL 2005, I figured we may as well play as the Vancouver Canucks, ladies and gentlemen. It will probably be our only chance to play as a Canadian team during this simulation if we follow with the Cup champions, since a Canadian team hasn't won the Cup since 1993, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in our season central. Now, one thing that I've noticed that they've done differently with this game compared to the previous ones is that they've actually got several different sidebars with all the different options, as opposed to having all of the options on the screen at the same time, which I think is a lot more organised, a lot more well-balanced with all the stuff that's on the screen, so I really like that. So what does our lineup look like? On the first line, we have Marcus Naslund with Morrison and Todd Bertuzzi. On the second line, we have the Sedin twins with Matt Cook. Then we've got Martin Roshinsky, Trevor Linden, and Mike Keane on the third line, and Brad May with Chubarov and Ruutu on the fourth line. If we look at defense, we have Oland with Sopel on the first defensive pair, we have Malik with Ed Jovanovski on the second pair, and then we have Allen with Sami Salo on the third pair. Our goaltenders, we have Cloutier at 85 overall and Auld at 75 overall. So, now one thing you guys may have noticed on the screen that was missing from the previous games that we've played in this series is the introduction of a line chemistry, which I think is pretty cool. It looks like our first line with the chemistry of 100 has a +5 bonus. Does that mean Marcus Naslund is playing at a 99 overall? And obviously, the less chemistry you have, the less bonus overall. And if you have a really bad line chemistry, you can even have a negative overall added to your line, which kind of sucks, but I completely understand why they've done it. You want to have some decent line chemistry going on there. Now, unlike the previous episodes that we've done, one new thing that I'm going to implement in this series moving forwards, I'm going to press the best lines button before we start any simulation, before we play any games, because I want to give our team the best possible opportunity to win games and to have the best lineup possible. I'm going to press best lines and see how this changes things. So the first line has stayed the same. The second line, Trevor Linden's been put on instead of Matt Cook, which I think makes sense. Matt Cook has been moved to the third line, and Martin Roshinsky has been moved to the fourth line, and Arvidsson has been brought into the lineup. So there is a bit of a change there in the offense. And then Jovanovski's playing on the first pair with Sopel, and Oland is playing with Salo on the second pair. Then Malik and Allen are playing on the third pair, and they have a chemistry of 40 and a -1 modifier. So like I mentioned earlier, they have that modifier on there for not very good chemistry. Let's go to the calendar and see what our 04-05 NHL season schedule looks like. Once again, I'm going to go through the same kind of simulation as I've done for the previous episodes, take a look at the stats, check in with our team and see where we're at. Hopefully Vancouver can win some games, but I'll see you after the first 10 games, folks. The first 10 games of our season are officially in the books, and the Vancouver Canucks actually got off to a really good start, folks. By the looks of it, we went 6-2-2 to open up our season, which is a really strong start for this Canucks squad. But let's take a look at the standings early on in the season. Obviously, it's very early days at this point. Let's see how the Canucks are doing to start the year. And by the looks of it, in the NHL standings across the entire league, the Vancouver Canucks currently sit 4th place with 14 points in their first 10 games. They're only 1 point back from first place Dallas. That's a really good start for us. Todd Bertuzzi with 8 goals and 13 points, as well as 30 penalty minutes in his first 10 games, leads our team in both goals, points and penalty minutes as well. Marcus Naslund with 10 points in 10 games, he's going a point per game. Henrik Sedin with 9 points in 10 games. Brent Sopel with 9 points in 10 games also, and Daniel Sedin with 8 points in 10 games. So a pretty good start for us. I'm quite happy with that. Dan Cloutier has played 9 of our first 10 games, has a .207 goals against average, a 5-2-2 record to start the year, with a .901 save percentage, so a really good start for him. And then Johan Hedberg has played 1 game, he's allowed 1 goal, he's got 1 win, and he's got a save percentage of .941. So some pretty good goaltending from us, some pretty good offense, some pretty good defense. I think we should just go and see how the rest of the season plays out, right guys? So a really strong start for this Canucks squad this season. Let's see if the next 10 games of our schedule fare equally as well, or whether we kind of cool off a little bit. I'll see you again after the next 10 games, folks. We're 20 games in now, and I think it's fair to say that the Vancouver Canucks have cooled off just a little bit, as they pretty much went 500 during their last 10 games. I think it's fair to say that we could have done better, but we certainly could have done a lot worse, you know? Okay, so the Vancouver Canucks, currently 8th place in the NHL standings, with 25 points in 20 games so far this season, an 11-6-2-1 record, which really isn't that bad, I'll be honest. We're almost winning double the amount of games that we're losing in regulation, so certainly could be worse. If we look at the Western Conference, we are still holding firm in 2nd place, However, Detroit have 3 games in hand on us and the same amount of points, so I imagine we might drop to at least 3rd place. 26 points in 20 games for Todd Bertuzzi. However, the goal lead is Marcus Naslund, 15 goals, 23 points in 20 games, and Brendan Morrison with 17 points in 20 games. The Sedin twins with 13 and 12 points respectively, and then Brent Sopel with 11 points in 20 games. So I'd like to see a couple more players score at a higher pace. I mean, obviously the second line's kind of going a point every other game, and that kind of probably contributes to us, you know, kind of going 500 for the last few games. And if we look at the goaltending, Dan Cloutier has played 19 games, so he played every single one of those games during that last stretch. He has a 2.5 goals against average and a 10-7-2 record with a 8-8 save percentage. So not the best stretch of games for Cloutier there, but it doesn't matter. He's winning more games than he's lost. We've got to take that as a victory, right? Now, one thing I've noticed in this game compared to the previous games as well is the fact that you can't get the entire NHL standings and see who's leading the league in points. You have to go through every single team specifically. There doesn't seem to be an option for just NHL. You just kind of cycle through all the different teams. So I'm not going to go through every single team and look at who their leading scorers are. You can see a couple of them on the screen at the moment, but I feel like that's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see who's leading the entire NHL, but that's a bit of a step back there, EA Sports. For all the good things you've added into this game, that's a bit of a step back. I'm very disappointed, guys. I think it's time to make some real progress during our season now, so let's simulate up to the halfway point of our 04-05 schedule, shall we? This is a huge make or break situation for the Canucks. Hopefully they continue to stay on the winning path. If they at least go 500, then I'd be happy, and it would mean that they'd probably still hold a playoff berth and maybe even a high spot in the Western Conference. I'll see you again at the midway point of the season, folks. Halfway through the season now, and the Vancouver Canucks have continued to play 500 hockey by the looks of it. If we look back at the month of December, you can see we strung together a fair amount of wins in a short period of time, but we also did the same with losses over a certain stretch, and then to end the month of November, we went 2-2 pretty much. One against Carolina, one against Tampa, but lost against Minnesota and Florida as well. So I think we ended up winning more games than we lost, and I think the ties certainly helped cushion some of the losses that we got as well. The Vancouver Canucks are 6th place across the entire NHL with 48 points in 41 games. Currently 4th place in the Western Conference. Obviously, San Jose and St. Louis, they're in different divisions, I believe, to Vancouver, so that helps to determine their spot within the standings. But we're very much holding firm. I mean, if we go down to the 8th seed, 44 points in 43 games. We have at least 2 games in hand on the final spot. It is quite a close race in the Western Conference, I will admit. And then if we take a look at the Eastern Conference as well, Montreal leading Atlanta, New Jersey have the 3rd seed despite having 47 points in 39 games, so their division isn't doing very well. Toronto in 4th place, Ottawa in 5th place, etc, etc. 45 points in 41 games for Naslund, 32 of them are goals. Wow, Naslund is going on a tear this season. Then Todd Bertuzzi with 44 points in 41 games. We only have 2 players that are over a point per game still, so at least they're holding firm. At least we haven't only got 1 player or no player, so that's obviously better than nothing. Morrison's really dropped off with 30 points in 41 games, only 6 goals on the season. Brent Sopel has managed to join the top 5 in scoring with 25 points in 41 games. Then we've got the Sedin twins with 24 points and 22 points respectively. So Cloutier has played 24 games. He has a 2.48 goals against average with a 13-9-2 record. So he's really not playing that well, and an 8.81 save percentage. I mean, he could be playing better, he could be playing worse. Then Hedberg has a 6.72 record this season with a 2.57 goals against average and an 8.73 save percentage, so Hedberg isn't particularly doing very well either. And then Alexander Old has played a couple of games for us, and he's 2-0-0 with a 0.9 save percentage and a 2 goals against average, so our 3rd string netminder's getting the job done when we need him. It would just be nice if our starter could kind of string together a few more wins as well, you know? I think it's time that we go up to the trade deadline and see where our team is at 3/4 of the way through the schedule. Obviously, if we keep holding pat as things stand right now, we should be able to clinch a playoff spot sooner rather than later. Will the simulation engine be good to us, or will the hockey gods damn us and make us miss the playoffs right near the end of the season? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'll see you at the trade deadline, folks. So we've just passed the trade deadline, folks, and as you can see, the Vancouver Canucks have continued to play 500 hockey down the stretch. If we look at the month of February, we have a couple of wins. We strung together some wins, but we also strung together our fair share of losses. And if we look at the rest of the month of January, kind of similar tale, really. Hopefully this is still good enough to secure us a playoff berth or keep us in the hunt at the very least, and then hopefully down the home stretch we can solidify our position. How do the Vancouver Canucks stack up? They are still in the top 7 of the NHL standings, which is really good for us. Interestingly, we've played 69 games, well, hey, and we have 79 points. So, not too bad for us. Could be better, could be worse. We have a 35, 25, 6 and 3 record on the season to give us 7th overall in the NHL, so could be a lot worse. 79 points. In the Western Conference, we currently sit 4th place in the Western Conference standings. Detroit, Colorado, and San Jose above us. Then if we look at the Eastern Conference before the end of the season, the New Jersey Devils have really scorched it up over that last stretch in 1st place. Atlanta, Toronto, Montreal take the rest of the top 4 spots. And what about the player stats, I hear you ask? Well, Marcus Naslund with 92 points. Oh my god, 64 of them have been goals in 69 games. Well, hey, but he's almost gone a goal a game for the entire season. God, keep that up, Naslund. You're not only going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy, you might even break Gretzky's record for most goals in a season. Then we've got Todd Bertuzzi with 86 points in 69 games. Well, hey, 31 of which are goals, so very nice. Brendan Morrison with 61 points in 69 games. He's really kind of picked it up over this last stretch. Brent Sopel with 45 points in 69 games, then Henrik Sedin with 43 and Trevor Linden with 38 in 69 respectively. So, and then for the goaltending, Cloutier, 37 games played, a 2.7 goals against average, 17, 16 and 4 on the season with an 8.71 save percentage. So, Cloutier's really dropped off over this last 30 games or so. Auld has played 5 games and he's 4-0-0 with a 2.46 goals against average and 8.92 save percentage. So Alexander Auld picking us up some wins, going on a bit of a winning streak. Well done, buddy. You've been a bit of our saving grace this season. And then Johan Hedberg with 29 games played, so it's very much a 1A, 1B situation in the Vancouver Canucks crease this season. And he has a 14, 12 and 2 record, so he's going 500 as well, with a 2.94 goals against average and 8.53 save percentage. It all comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen, the home stretch of the 04-05 season. The Vancouver Canucks have 13 games left of their regular season schedule. Can they continue to hold firm and secure themselves a playoff berth? Or will they have a terrible end to the season and end up on the outside of the playoff picture and looking towards the draft lottery? Well, I think it makes sense if we simulate up to our final game of the season, check the standings, see where we're at, and hopefully see if we secure a playoff berth. So, I'll see you for the final game of the season, folks. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the final game of our 04-05 NHL season, but we're not going to play against the Los Angeles Kings just yet, as we're going to take a look at the regular season standings. Have the Vancouver Canucks made the playoffs? Yes, they have, folks. Currently sitting 7th overall across the entire NHL standings, with a 40, 29, 8 and 4 record on the season. The Vancouver Canucks have 92 points in 81 games. Now that we have confirmed that we have made the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, let's simulate through our final game of the season and see how we do. We finish off with a tie, but it doesn't matter. The first round of the playoffs has been determined, and we are going up against the St. Louis Blues in the first round of the 2005 Stanley Cup Playoffs. Ooh, this is going to be exciting, isn't it? Let's take a look at the final standings across the NHL, and it looks like the New Jersey Devils have captured this year's President's Trophy thanks to their 47, 26, 5 and 4 record, which was good enough for 103 points in 82 games. They narrowly beat out the Atlanta Thrashers of all teams, as well as the powerhouse of the era Detroit Red Wings, who won the previous President's Trophy before the lockout, to take home the President's Trophy, the best team in the regular season, as well as home ice advantage for the entire postseason. So, now if we take a look at the Western Conference, the Detroit Red Wings very handily took first place in the conference with 102 points. Second place, the Colorado Avalanche. Third place, the San Jose Sharks, thanks to their weak division. Then us, the Vancouver Canucks, with 93 points in 82 games, 40, 29, 9 and 4 to end the season, so a pretty good record for us. The St. Louis Blues, who we're going up against in the first round of the postseason, with 92 points to take the 5th seed. The Columbus Blue Jackets making the playoffs, fair play to them, with the 6th seed. The Dallas Stars in 7th, and the Phoenix Coyotes in 8th. The Phoenix Coyotes have done very well during our simulations during this series, and then the teams outside of the playoffs, the Chicago Blackhawks narrowly missing it, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim missing it in 10th place, the Calgary Flames in 11th, the Minnesota Wild in 12th, the Edmonton Oilers in 13th, the LA Kings in 14th, and the Nashville Predators in 15th. So, I would imagine that quite a lot of the teams that actually ended up making the playoffs this year would have done in real life. I mean, the Columbus Blue Jackets maybe not so much, but The rest of the team seem pretty accurate to me. Maybe the Calgary Flames make it because they made it to the finals the year prior. But they only missed out by about 5 points, so could have been better, could have been worse for them, you know? And then if we take a look at the Eastern Conference, the New Jersey Devils obviously taking the first seed, with the Atlanta Thrashers narrowly taking the second seed with 102 points, 47 wins in 82 games. Unfortunately, only in a video game, right, guys? Then the Toronto Maple Leafs in third place with the third seed, the Montreal Canadiens in fourth, the New York Islanders in fifth, the Boston Bruins in 6th, the Buffalo Sabres in 7th, and lastly for the playoff berths, the Ottawa Senators in 8th. Then the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Cup champions, 1 point away from a playoff berth, so they just missed the playoffs. Oh, that's huge. Then the Carolina Hurricanes in 10th. Then you have the Philadelphia Flyers in 11th, the Washington Capitals in 12th, the Florida Panthers in 13th, the Pittsburgh Penguins in 14th, yeah, that seems pretty apt, and then the New York Rangers in 15th. So compared to our last video in the series, they finished first place in their division, I'm pretty sure, or in the conference as well, and they're all the way down at the bottom. That's where they were in real life during the prior season, so maybe the simulation did actually get a few things right here. I mean, obviously, Pittsburgh and Washington were having financial troubles at the time. I think the biggest one is Tampa, though. The fact that they missed the playoffs by a single point, didn't get the chance to defend their title. And the Atlanta Thrashers finishing second place is kind of a shock to everybody, I think. But, you know, it's nice to see a team that never worked out get some kind of success, you know? So let's take a look at our player stats for this season and see how well our roster did by the end of the year. And with a whopping 80 goals and 120 points in 82 regular season games, Marcus Naslund led both our roster and probably a large chunk of the NHL in scoring by a pretty sizable margin, you know. 80 goals in 82 games, folks. That's like the third best single season goals total since Gretzky broke the record with 92 in a year, you know. So congratulations to Marcus Naslund. Then 105 points, well, it's still very impressive for Todd Bertuzzi, breaking the 100-point mark as well, especially in the dead puck era, with 38 goals and 67 points. Then there's a huge drop-off for the rest of our roster. Brendan Morrison, 79 points in 82 games. Sopel, our highest scoring defenseman, with 50 points in 82 games. Henrik Sedin had a pretty good year for himself at 24 years old, 47 points in 82 games. And Trevor Linden rounding out the top 6 with 43 points in 82 games. Daniel Sedin had 39 points and 25 goals on the year. So we had 3 20-goal scorers. We had an 80-goal scorer as well, which is pretty impressive. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show how Naslund stacks up with the rest of the NHL, because there doesn't seem to be a way to show the entire player stats across the entire NHL. So if he doesn't win the Rocket Richard this year, then I will be absolutely stunned, ladies and gentlemen. Cloutier played 48 games, was 21, 21 and 5, with a 2.8 goals against average and an 8.67 save percentage. Alexander Auld played 5 games, so his stats didn't change from the last time we looked. And then Hedberg with 32 games played, a 15, 12 and 4 record, with a 2.96 goals against average and an 8.52 save percentage. So I think it's fair to say that our goaltending could have been better, could have been worse. Now, before we start the playoffs, let's take a look at the playoff tree, shall we? So in the Western Conference, we have the 1st seed Detroit Red Wings against the 8th seed Phoenix Coyotes. We have the 2nd seed Colorado Avalanche against the 7th seed Dallas Stars. The 3rd seed San Jose Sharks against the 6th seed Columbus Blue Jackets. Then our 4th seed Vancouver Canucks against the 5th seed St. Louis Blues. Then in the Eastern Conference, we have the 1st seed New Jersey Devils against the 8th seed Ottawa Senators, who are obviously a reigning Cup finalist during our last episode. The 2nd seed Atlanta Thrashers against the 7th seed Buffalo Sabres. The 3rd seed Toronto Maple Leafs against the 6th seed Boston Bruins. So once again, history does repeat itself, folks. Then the 4th seed Montreal Canadiens against the 5th seed New York Islanders. So we have our first round series against the 5th seed St. Louis Blues. Let's simulate the first 2 games, see how we do. We win the first one, we lose the second one, so could be better, could be worse. Let's play through games 3 and 4. We lose both of them straight, so things aren't looking very good. We're facing elimination now with 3 games to 1 down, and we have game 5 at home, so hopefully we win this one. No, we don't win that one, so the Vancouver Canucks don't make it out of the first round despite a really strong season for them. And ladies and gentlemen, the Colorado Avalanche have won the 2005 Stanley Cup. Well, considering they won last year's Stanley Cup as well, it looks like we might be getting ourselves a bit of a dynasty on our hands, folks. They've won 3 of the last 5 or 6 championships. They've basically done what the Chicago Blackhawks did during the 2010s, so congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche taking another Stanley Cup home. They have that cup winning experience, they have that stacked roster, and they managed to get it done once again. So from the Western Conference, a 5-game series and Detroit went through against Phoenix, a 6-game series between Colorado and Dallas and Colorado went through. The Columbus Blue Jackets surprisingly managed to win a 7-game series against San Jose, then obviously our 5-game series loss against the St. Louis Blues, and then Detroit swept Columbus in the second round. Colorado, another 6-game series against St. Louis, but they win once again. Then the Western Conference Finals once again was Detroit versus Colorado, which was probably an absolutely incredible series, especially at that time where those two teams hated each other and were bitter rivals. And another 6-game series win for the Colorado Avalanche to advance through to the finals. And then from the Eastern Conference, we have the 8th seed Ottawa Senators beating the President's Trophy winners in 6 games in the first round. The Atlanta Thrashers unfortunately get beaten in 5 games to the 7th seed Buffalo. The 3rd seed Toronto Maple Leafs managed to beat Boston, so they managed to exercise their demons, so good job Maple Leafs. And then the 5th seed New York Islanders beat the 4th seed Montreal Canadiens in 6 games. Then the second round, a 7-game series between Ottawa and Toronto. The Battle of Ontario and Ottawa win to advance to the conference finals yet again. Then a 6-game series between 5th seed Islanders and 7th seed Buffalo, with Buffalo going through. So then the Eastern Conference Finals was the 7th seed Buffalo Sabres against the 8th seed Ottawa Senators, and the Ottawa Senators advanced to their 2nd consecutive Stanley Cup Finals with a 7-game series victory against Buffalo, and then another sweep. So the Colorado Avalanche and the Ottawa Senators met in their back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals, and the Colorado Avalanche take yet another win. Oh, that must be so heartbreaking for Senators fans who just want to see their team win a Stanley Cup. But it looks like the Colorado Avalanche, they get the job done once again. Last but by no means least, let's finish up with who won the awards, shall we? So the 2004-2005 Stanley Cup, if the lockout hadn't ended and the season had been played, then chances are the Colorado Avalanche would have taken home the championship. The Hart Memorial Trophy goes to Rick Nash. Wow, his 2nd or 3rd year player. I think he's in his 3rd season in the NHL, and Rick Nash is named the most valuable player to his team, the MVP in the NHL, so congratulations to Rick Nash, a hell of a season from him. The Art Ross Trophy goes to Ilya Kovalchuk of the Atlanta Thrashers, who led the league in scoring at the end of the regular season. The Maurice Richard Trophy goes to Marcus Naslund for the most goals. I am not surprised at all whatsoever. 80 goals in 82 games, like I said. The Norris Trophy goes to Chris Pronger, which is really interesting. He hasn't won the Norris in a very long time, in at least the last half a decade. So congratulations to Chris Pronger of the St. Louis Blues for being the best defenseman. The Calder Trophy goes to Marc-Andre Fleury, the netminder of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So in back-to-back years, a netminder has won the Best Rookie of the Year trophy. So that's pretty cool. That's really interesting. The Vezina Trophy also goes to Marc-Andre Fleury. Wow, okay. Considering it took him till his tenure with the Vegas Golden Knights, he literally won the Vezina Trophy last season. It was his first ever win. He not only takes home the Rookie of the Year award, he's also determined the best goaltender across the entire league by the general managers. So then the Lady Byng Trophy goes to Eric Days of the Chicago Blackhawks. Once again, I don't know how many penalty minutes he produced or anything like that. The Frank J. Selke Trophy goes to Joffrey Lupul of the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Obviously, Lupul very much in his early days in the league, and he manages to be the best defensive player. Definitely more understandable than Matt Barnaby last episode, I will say that. The Conn Smythe Trophy goes to Alex Tanguay of the Colorado Avalanche as playoff MVP. I'm not really surprised, he led his team in scoring. The William M. Jennings Trophy for the goaltender with the fewest goals against once again goes to Martin Brodeur for the 3rd year in a row. Obviously in our simulation the timeline's slightly different and I don't think Brodeur's won it in 3 consecutive seasons. But wow, the offside trap, New Jersey Devils, dead puck era hockey was still clearly working during the 04-05 season. The Bill Masterton Trophy goes to Todd Bertuzzi of all players, which is really interesting, considering this trophy best exemplifies perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. And let's be honest, Todd Bertuzzi probably isn't the best sportsman in the league, is he? Given his kind of controversial tenure in the NHL and that very questionable hit he made as well. But the Lester B. Pearson Award goes to Glenn Murray of the Boston Bruins again. I don't know what it is about Glenn Murray during the early to mid 2000s NHL, but this guy clearly scorched the league and won his fair share of awards in this simulation, eh? I don't think that was the case in the real NHL. During the seasons that we've looked at, he hasn't won a single award during the actual NHL timeline, so congratulations to him winning the award. Clearly he deserved it again. The Jack Adams Trophy for the best coach in the NHL goes to Pat Quinn of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It really sucks that they don't have the coaches' headshots like they did in NHL 2004, but regardless, a decent job there by Quinn, clearly, to get his team through to the playoffs, and an unfortunate first round loss. Oh, that's so Toronto Maple Leafs, isn't it? The President's Trophy obviously was given to the New Jersey Devils for their 103 points in 82 games. The Prince of Wales Trophy for the finalist from the Eastern Conference obviously goes to the Ottawa Senators. The Clarence S. Campbell Trophy obviously goes to the Western Conference's Colorado Avalanche. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Those were all the awards from this season. So if the 04-05 NHL season had actually been played, if the lockout never took place, and the full 82-game season actually was played, that is kind of the idea of how the NHL would have played out. Would Marcus Naslund have scored 80 goals in 82 games? Probably not. Would Colorado have won the Stanley Cup? Maybe, it's certainly possible. But all we know is this was a very fun experiment to try. Obviously, this has completely taken us away from the real NHL's timeline, but I figured since we're going back and replaying NHL history, it made perfect sense to kind of jump into a season that never happened and play the game, you know? And on that note, I'm going to end today's video. What do you guys think about our 2004-2005 NHL season simulation? Do you think that there would have been a similar outcome if the lockout had never happened and this season was actually played in real life? Or do you think that things would have gone much, much differently? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Clayton Hallam, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Lucas Gates, Raquel, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.